You're live, baby.
Live from Itasca. It's Dave and Mike from MotherG. We are. I am back in the office. Mike is still at home. He came in first time yesterday. He had some challenges, eh, Mike?
Yeah, it was weird being back in the office. I had to find everything again. So
Yeah,
it's a
and get your
strange
computer
space.
set up, right? I mean, because you took monitors home and stuff.
I did, and despite working for a tech company and being really good with a lot of tech, setting it up not so much my strength. I
Do
forgot
you
a
like my
hardwire.
Do you like my faux hawk here from the light right over my head? Makes it
Yeah,
look like I have.
you're like an old man, Mr. T.
I'm like a Marvel character now. Light
uh,
shining, my bald dome shining brightly.
that's how our two brains work. I think
Yeah,
Mr. T,
right,
you think you're a
right.
hero.
So, kind of the point today, we wanted to talk a little bit about what it means to return to the office. I kind of cringe when people say return to work because we've never stopped working. We're one of those essential businesses. And I think it's kind of almost an insult to the team to say, we're going to return to work because many of them were working harder, myself included, unfortunately, during this whole crisis. And so I think, certainly I think owners and leaders of organizations have been put under a high level of work and stress during this crisis, and getting back into the office, I think, is a welcome thing. I know my team is really anxious to do it. And Mike, you suggested that we get together and talk about the process that we went through to get back in the office.
Yeah, I mean, we have 35-ish employees, and there's a lot of different personalities. At MotherG, our core values kind of reign supreme, right? And so we're a tribe, and even though that we have this cohesive thought going forward and what our organization is trying to accomplish, there are competing factors and different personalities, and everybody's at a different level. So it's not easy to create a plan that satisfies everyone. And so I
No,
thought it was important to share our process and be a resource to help make it a little bit easier in what we're doing and accomplishing as a central business.
yeah, I think one observation that I had as we were nearing this point was that of the leadership team, let alone the organization, the leadership team itself had very divergent views on the pandemic and what our response should be. And if you think of it, I hate to put it this way, but kind of the right to the left,
Mm-hmm.
in variance. I mean, I think it's more dynamic than that. But we had a lot of differing opinions, and as we started talking about what our plan to return to office was, as I was developing that with Philippe, our COO, I realized that one of the core things that we had to do was first get the leadership team on the same page. So even if maybe I'm more of a herd immunity guy, and we have maybe another individual who might be more shelter in place and quarantine, like Mike, we needed to both get on the same philosophy as an organization. And the way we put it was that MotherG needs to take on its own opinion about how we view the pandemic, what our safety standards are going to be, and how do we return to office, not return to work, but return to office to work together. And that exercise I thought was kind of laborious, getting everyone together on a Zoom call to talk it through. And there was, some of the people saying, why are we wasting our time? Let's just do this. And why can't we just follow the standards that are published? And, and as we talked it through, what we realized that there was a lot of diversity in how we viewed both the pandemic as well as how we should return to office. And I thought it was constructive conversation.
Yeah, it's interesting to see people's personalities kind of shine through and what their thought process is, because they really were representing a little bit of a different segment for every single person. Like you said, from you all the way on one side to me all the way on the other, and then trying to take into account what are the potential personal circumstances that play into this too.
Yeah, and this whole idea, I think, people can get frosty in how you portray them, myself included. When, I've been portrayed as the person who just wants to get everyone back to work. And it's like, no, man, I don't want sick people. We got a great team. I don't want to see any of them get sick, let alone have serious health problems from it. So I don't want anyone to get sick. And I certainly don't want to impugn the organization's ability to deliver the value that we deliver to our client base. On the other hand, what I saw, what I observed, and I think some of these organizations that have kicked the can on returning to office down the road quite a bit are at peril for this factor, in that if your organization processes and cultures were built with the implied underlying aspect that you're going to work together in an office, that you're going to be able to collaborate, that the help desk manager is going to be able to hear people having conversations with clients and be able to remediate or help assist that service delivery process by observing over a cubicle wall. And then that cubicle wall becomes 10 miles away. You can't do that anymore. What happens to the service delivery? And what we saw was, in a very subtle way, the process is rusting a little bit. And, that slight degradation over time, it is what can really change the course of the organization. And the analogy I always talk about is that, had the Titanic left port 1 degree south, a half a degree south, nobody would have even noticed it, not even the helmsman steering the ship. And we wouldn't have that corny movie as a byproduct. So, Leonardo wouldn't be the star that he is today.
How dare you?
Well, sorry. So, the point is like, there's a subtlety to these things that builds over time. The 1% habit, right? Atomic Habits is a great book on this.
I mean, even, you talk about it from a business standpoint, but from a mental standpoint too. I mean, yesterday when I was in the office, Kevin Morse, our director of business development, sits about 6 feet away from me. And so we were both back in the office, but even our conversations there led to productive ideas and concepts when we were just kind of BSing. We were
right. I mean, that's what
up.
happens. The casualness of interaction is where a lot of creativity and innovation comes from. Playing off, it's kind of like jazz bands, right? They riff based on what each other is doing. And so we said, we do, because one of the questions was brought up, said, what, we're operating just fine remotely, which we are. Why do we have to rush to get back in the office? And they said, well, I don't think 3 months is rushing, because we've been out of the office for 3 months. We quarantined before the state quarantined us, just to test it and make sure. And then, we just stayed that way because we saw the writing on the wall. So, 3 months isn't rushing back into the office. But we felt that because we either had to restructure our service delivery models in certain ways that would allow us to not rust while working in this distributed fashion, or start re-engaging people into that process and getting them collaborating in the traditional manner. We had to do one or the other. And we said, look, we're probably going to end up back in the office anyway. That's where everyone wants to be, right? We polled the team and they said, yeah, we would like to get back to the office.
I think that, without glossing over that point right there, I think one of the most important things that we did was consistently survey people throughout this entire process. And so even if somebody's out there right now watching this and they haven't been doing that, it's really simple to create a free account on like SurveyMonkey or something. Yes. And just send out, a short questionnaire, 10 questions, just try to get the vibe of what your team is thinking and feeling. Because that's going to make things a lot easier than you guessing and letting your own inherent biases take over. Because you may think, yeah, everybody wants to get back to work. Yeah, I would love to get back to work and be in there every single day and be back to normal, but that's not quite possible yet. And so I think that would be
most people do need to get back to the office. You need to get back to work.
Yeah, this was my little work break. This is how I con you into taking breaks. I'm working now.
Right. No, I think that's an important point, Mike. I'm glad you brought it up. I mean, we surveyed the team multiple times from a culture standpoint to make sure things were going okay, that they were okay, that they weren't too anxious about, their safety, as well as, the organization doing their job. They had the right tools, all those things. And then when we said, okay, we're going to build our return to office plan in early May, we sent a survey out to every employee, and that one was not anonymous because we really wanted to understand the specific circumstances. For example, we have an employee who really wants to get back into the office. They want to get out of working from home because it's too distracting and difficult, but their children don't have daycare anymore. And so it has to be a choice between parents of who's going to stay home with the kids and work and who's going to go back to the office. And so navigating those challenges, you can't tell somebody who doesn't have daycare that, whatever, your job's in the office now. And so we wanted to be very deliberate and intentional about how we created the plan for each individual employee so that we could make it, the best balanced approach to get everyone back together.
Yeah, and if I can give a plug for MotherG right now, but I mean, that sticks exactly to our core values of being a tribe, because again, I said it a little bit earlier, but reiterating that we're without sounding corny, we're in this together, but we're alone in our own personal circumstances. And so if we can offer that flexibility, that makes it much easier to have that compassion as an organization, and also creates loyalty and understanding that we're sticking true to our words. And so if you're an organization and you're communicating to your employees that we care about you, and then all of a sudden you flip a switch and say, everybody has to get back, it doesn't matter, because we can, then that's just basically, you kick rocks.
This idea of that we're not all in this together. I hate that. We're not in it together. I mean, you and I aren't together. How can we say we're in it together?
Right.
I mean, I understand philosophically, but I don't like the way that's worded. I heard it on a Mike Rowe podcast where Mike said, and I don't know that it was his quote, but I'll attribute it to him because I heard him say it, that we're not in this together. We're in the same storm in separate boats. And so everyone's circumstances are a little bit different. And I think that's really the nuance that we tried to bring to it. And not just our employees, but also our clients. One of the other things that we did was because we have to go on site for our support model, we call every one of our clients to ask what the status of their environment is, what their rules are for people in the office, so that we can conform to what their best practices are. At least, we want the highest common denominator, or highest common numerator, I guess you'd say. We want the highest levels of safety for our team. So if the client's safety standards are below ours, we maintain our own safety standard at that client site. But we're also looking for the health and security and safety of them and our employees. And so we built in that process to include the return to office procedures and protocols that we have in place.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was really important that we're keeping track of who's doing what, where they're going, and what's the environment like, because like you said, it allows us, knock on wood, nobody catches anything, but it allows us to really pinpoint and figure out where the lapse was too. So that also protects us internally from putting more people at risk.
Yeah, we don't want anyone at risk unintentionally. I think there are some people, we have people that are not scared of the virus, shall I say. So their fear of being infected is lower than other people. We have some people that have health conditions that we believe they need to really protect themselves. And so there's this kind of divergence in that area. And we've tried to balance those things. So if we have somebody who is, either a pre-existing condition or, comorbidity, as they like to say now, I still don't know what that means, but they use it.
I just nodded. Yeah.
Right. I thought something about being fat, morbidly fat or something. I don't know, which would apply to me after this quarantine. But if we have somebody who has a pre-existing condition we don't really want them going on site to clients and exposing them unduly, unnecessarily to those risk factors. And so, understanding who might be at risk, who is fearful of it, and who doesn't have the fear and doesn't have the risk factors allowed us to really segregate the employee base into categories and allow us to rebuild our appropriate support model coming back into the office and still facilitating every aspect of our service delivery so that, we're not sacrificing in any way anything we do for our clients. And that's been the underlying factor. We do not want to sacrifice anything we do. We have a very high standard of service delivery that we hold ourselves to, and we wanted to see no degradation in the process. And I'm really proud of the fact that the team has pulled together, everyone understanding what their role is and knowing how they impact that overall service delivery. We've been able to maintain that high level of standard through this process.
Yeah, I think one of the other things that we implemented early on that made sense is we know that everybody was going to feel the pressure of working from home. So you're almost like, I have to prove that I'm working harder and more so that we're not losing any standards. And so implementing those mandatory days off, not cut paid days off, but actually just regular vacation days off, was good for the mental health. And I think that's what kept us strong and moving forward and really helping us keep a clear sight.
That was a good point, Mike. About a month into the quarantine at home, we had been doing happy hours every Friday. And what I noticed was you would see a normal attrition. The very first happy hour, I think we had every employee on, and some of them were on for 6 hours and probably were not feeling so well the next day. But, I noticed a little bit of attrition, but I noticed it getting more, and there was less enthusiasm and less fun and, kind of that, camaraderie that we were getting. And so we had a conversation in our weekly management meeting virtually. How's the team holding up? And almost unanimously, they noticed that the stress levels were higher, that people were feeling, not just work stress, but the stress of life, of dealing with the pandemic, of not being able to leave, of not being able to socialize, of so many of their aspects in their lives being curtailed. So we said, well, look, work will contribute to that. We would have a normal amount of PTO. No one was taking any time off. And so we asked, notably on our support desk and in our proactive technical account managers, that they take some time off, that they plan a day off to just not work. You can't go on vacation necessarily, but some people hopped in the car and took drives. Some people did backyard picnics. Some people spent their day doing sidewalk art and, hanging with their kids.
I saw somebody actually sent a company-wide email on the day that they were scheduled off, and you yelled at them.
Yes,
that was my favorite. Get off your email now.
Yeah, that was Joanne. She's hard to not work.
I didn't want to sell her out, but go ahead.
Yeah. Told her if she doesn't, I'm going to make her come into the office.
Yeah, right.
Anyway. So maybe let me. Does it make sense to run through our slide? I'm not going to go through the slides, but we're going to post this to our resource page, and people can download it and customize it as they want. But I thought maybe we could just run through quickly what we've got.
Yeah, I think it would be cool to kind of just show some of the things that we're doing internally and the processes that we have in place, so that way people can get an idea of where they might want to shape their own guidelines.
Yeah, so I'll just talk through not so much the slide content, but why we put it there. So agenda. So, what we wanted to do in the facts versus reality, which is Philippe's kind of funny way of putting things, is facts and reality.
He's French.
The reality is people's perception versus the facts, and that emotion drives us. And we wanted to empathize that everyone's kind of in a different boat in the same storm, and that although there are facts about what's happening, everyone has their own opinions, they have their own viewpoints, they have their own risk factors, and really that we wanted to just find some sort of external benchmark of where we were at. And so we adopted the Restore Illinois program of measuring where we're at and what their safety standards were in place.
That was, I think that, sorry to cut you off, but I think that was important for particularly our organization, where you have a lot of, data analysts, a lot of, just people that rely on facts and not as much emotions than maybe some other organizations. And so being able to speak to the emotional aspect of it was an important part to acknowledge and say, we hear you, and here's how we're going to use that as our benchmark versus, organizationally, we're extremely process driven.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
it's kind of like the antithesis of what we normally
the idea really is to acknowledge and validate everybody's individual feelings, because everyone feels the way they feel and their own circumstances are true for them. So
Right.
if you're, Mike, I know you're much more fearful about, catching the disease for very good reason than I am. Maybe not for good reason, but, with a pregnant wife at home that's due, within a couple of weeks, for your second kid, you want to be able to be in the delivery room and hold your baby after he or she is born. So, I think that's a very real reason why you should be fearful of it. And so those circumstances, acknowledging and validating that, everyone's circumstances are a little bit different, but that we're going to continue down this path of returning to the office.
Correct.
And so, acknowledge and validate, and then, what are the guidelines? So we walked through, general guidelines of when and how, for example, will not allow more than 50% occupancy. I've got some pictures that we took. That's intentional. That wasn't arbitrary. And that's because we have a few open desks that would allow for our growth. And so we did the math and figured out that we could allow about 50% of our staff in the office, and we could maintain social distancing there. So, as you think that return to office, think what space parameters do you have that would allow you to get there?
Yeah, when we just recently, October, we had a whole office overhaul. And so that's actually made us able to come back to work in a larger capacity because we have all of this extra space.
Yeah. The additional part that we also put in place is that, when we hit phase 4 for the state, we expect to be back to normal operation. And so, I think there were 2 guidelines there: what we're going to do now during phase 3, and when does phase 3 end? So give people some end in sight, start setting expectations. So again, guidelines for what it means, and you can look through these things if you want to download. Now, the thing that I would say is that all of these elements are based on some of the templates that we obtained about, safety, but a lot of those elements of those templates didn't apply to us. For example, some of them are for retail operations. We don't have a retail operation. We don't have servers or, that kind of situation. So we customized all those things for our practical use in our organization. And so, I'll talk a little bit about our conference rooms here in a moment. I'll show you what we did. Visitor guidelines. So we do have visitors sometimes prospective clients want to come visit us. Sometimes our clients come visit us. We have vendors that will come. So, for example, we said if you're coming into the office, employees need to wear masks. Visitors should wear masks. We will check them in, we'll take their temperature, and limit where they go in the office to the conference rooms if they're meeting with us. And I'll show you what we did to the conference rooms in a second. But limit that. If they're employees, again, we take their check. We do a health check when they enter the office every day, take their temperature, make sure they've not been exposed to anybody who's ill, and then release them to the office. And so, we wanted to handle the visitors coming, and then also when we visit our clients. And so we have our protocol for appropriate safety measures when visiting the client. And then again, summarizing those elements. Let me show you some of the pictures because we took our lunchroom, which those 3 pictures are of the same lunchroom. You can see it spread out. Normally, the occupancy of that lunchroom is around 30 to 35 people.
Yeah,
we can fit more We had close to 60 at Christmas in that lunchroom.
We had that, the magic show in there.
Yeah, right.
Just
We had
a
our
couple
magic
months
show
ago.
in there. Yeah. But now we've thinned it out. We've moved the chairs literally so that people can't get lazy. That high boy where the orange chairs are typically has 6 chairs there, and we just physically removed them, which I think is appropriate. We took our conference rooms, did the same thing. So the large conference room on the left normally seats 10. And we limited it to 6. We feel that we can safely social distance at 6. And then the small conference room, we can safely distance at 4. And then, you see we call it the orange room, but there's orange chairs in there. That's to 4. And then the collaboration space that we've culled the seats out there as well. And then we have small meeting rooms that have been limited to 2. And so we've actually gone through those rooms and culled them out so that it would be hard for people to break the rules, really, because there's no seat. They would have to intentionally go grab a seat and drag it in there.
Yeah, and the nice part about that too is we're still setting it up. So when you go back to that Rust conversation, we're still setting it up for collaboration.
Yeah, sure.
And getting all the value out of it, but doing it safely,
right.
So that way there's no issues.
Right. And one thing we've also done is we've enhanced these conference rooms specifically. If you look closely, you can see cameras and big screen TVs. So every room has a native Teams setup. You can see all of the rooms have big screen TVs. And that's actually the one on the right is our huddle space. Normally we'd have 15 people or so huddled around that table in the morning doing their morning check-in, checking KPIs and whatnot. Now that's all virtual over Teams, but all of these are set up with Teams so that even if we have more than 6 people, like our management meeting on Monday, I was remote. I think you were remote, weren't you? Yep.
Yeah.
So about half of us were remote, but the other half were in that large conference room with the team set up. So
tomorrow
it allows us.
I was going to say tomorrow. Yeah, sorry, go ahead. But even tomorrow, we have a management meeting where there's going to be 10 of us that typically attend. And I know everybody's going to be in the office, but we're all going to be spaced out at different areas.
Leadership training, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So here are the protocols that we put in place. What happens if I'm sick or I feel sick? And we've given everyone a laminated card on COVID-19 safety standards and symptoms. So everyone, this is kind of just a summarized version of what that means, but we've got more detail in the laminated card that we gave everyone when they came back to office with a safety kit, which had mask and sanitizer, unless you had your own, you wanted to use your own. But so this is, what happens if they're sick, but they don't end up with COVID. And then this is if they feel sick and have COVID, they go home, they're diagnosed. And if they get tested. So if you feel that you might have COVID, you need to get tested. If the test is negative, then you stay home until like the normal flu, stay home until the symptoms are gone, wait 24 hours and come back. If the test is positive, you're going to be home for two weeks. And once those symptoms are gone, you can come back, but a medical caregiver must release you to come to the office. And that doesn't mean they're on vacation. It just means, or on PTO, it does mean that they can't work in the office. So once they feel better and they want to work again, they can start working.
Yeah, I think that.
So that's our protocol. And again, that'll be on our resources page for people to download and modify. And we're happy to help them look at their specific environments and figure out what works. Again, I think organizations would be wise to plan on the ability to work in a distributed fashion for a while longer, whether they return to office in full force or in some sort of limited capacity like we are. It is possible that we could get a bounce in the attack vector of the, I'm sorry, I'm back to cybersecurity, but in the, infection rate of COVID, that would, implore them to work remotely. They could have an infection in their office that, you don't want to bring down half your workforce with an illness, regardless of whether it's going to kill them or not, but, you do need to be prepared.
And I think this goes back to the initial conversation that we had is, do you have a business continuity plan in place? And so part of that is being prepared for when the situation starts, but then also being ready for this to come full circle.
Right. So, I mean, the good news for, we were very proud of the fact that, by and large, all of our clients were able to shift very quickly to a work remote environment, and we were able to support them in that transition. It's not that every organization was easy. For example, some didn't have laptops for employees to take home. Mm-hmm. And so you have to navigate some of those issues, and, they may not be wise investments to supply everyone with a laptop when 99% of the time they're in the office. But, anyway, we've been very fortunate in being able to get all of our clients up and running and keeping them safe, stable, and secure while they work from home. And that's certainly one of the benefits of doing business with Mother.
Absolutely. I think it's important to share this information with people. Like I said, we'll have the full presentation up, so feel free to pick it apart, use it the way that you want, and customize it for your own organization. So that way you are prepared and don't have to go through the whole rigmarole of putting in this or putting this together from scratch. Yeah.
And we're more than happy to help anybody through the decision templates. We have some templates that are more broad ranging. If, you've got a retail operation, or you've got, some sort of, manufacturing shop floor where, you're going to have people that are working more closely together and you can't social distance. We can help you walk through some of those scenarios and with the templates that we have that we use to arrive at our presentation. So reach out, happy to help any way we can.
All right, Dave. Well, it's been a pleasure actually seeing you, and I get to see you in person tomorrow. So, I got to prepare.
Scary. Are you going to gel your hair up like you did today? Normally,
look at this.
Mike's hair looks like a small afro, but he has gelled it up and he looks very professional.
My wife yelled at me. She said that she was going to give me a haircut. I think she did. Good job.
Just one quick quiz question, Mike.
Sure.
Pajama pants today, or do we actually have adult pants on?
You do not want to see.
Come on, let's see it.
Okay, you want to see the chicken legs? I've got shorts on.
Shorts.
These are
shorts on.
My freshman year high school basketball practice shorts. If you can follow.
So you've grown a lot.
I've been 5'8" since I was like 13.
Well, you used to be the star of the basketball team, I bet.
Yeah, I was, and then everybody.
Now you're a small point guard.
Yeah.
All right. Well, good talking to you, Mike.
All right. Bye, Dave.